Good morning. Welcome to First Unitarian. My name is Pablo Willie Bustos. I'm the music director here. I'm joined by Lynn and Wendy, who will be song leading us, and the choir today. Please, let's start the day with song and join me in body and spirit and rise in our first hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. The next hymn we're going to be singing is a short chant that is brand new to most of us. So we're going to use this beautiful harmonium over here for that. And I'll sing a little bit of it for you and then teach it and we'll sing it together. Let me just switch instruments. Blessing, call down a blessing. 1, 2, ready, and call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Now listen to the next two bars. Call down a blessing, 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 call down. Now, let's put this whole thing together and see how we do. 1, 2, ready, and call down a blessing, 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 call down. One more time, a little quieter, and call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. And now, nice and full, and call down a blessing, call
Call down a blessing. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Rochester. We gather here on Sundays because to do so is to remind ourselves that we are surrounded by a community that loves us, that cares for us, and that invites us to grow forever, to keep going throughout our life, no matter what stage we are at. Here at First Unitarian, our mission is through spiritual connection in community. We listen deeply to others and ourselves. We open to wonder and transformation, and we serve together with love and humility. I'm the Reverend Shari Halliday-Quan. I'm the lead minister here, and I am one of three ministers. Reverend AJ and Reverend Verdis are here with me today, and Massey Williams, and a couple of guests, including the Reverend Dick Gilbert, our minister emeritus, and a longtime member, Jean Ann Thomas, will be a part of leading worship today. But worship is the work of all of us. We gather to pay attention to what matters. And we gather here in this place acknowledging that this is the ancestral and contemporary land of the Seneca people, the keepers of the Western Door and part of the Haudenosaunee. We gather here as long-timers and newcomers. And if it's your first or second or 1,000th time, but you still think you're new, I invite you to stop by our welcome desk or let us know in the chat online. Hello to all of you there, so that we can help you get connected. So this is the end of our summer schedule here at First Unitarian. So next week at 10 o'clock, 10:07, right here at this moment, if you were to arrive, we'd be most of the way through our first service. So next week, we start with our homecoming service, and it's our water communion, our in-gathering service, and we invite you to bring water from a place that's special to you. But we'll also have some if you forget. Don't worry, we got you. First service is at 9:30, and then we have Connection and our second service and RE starting at 10:30. That second worship service starts at 11:30, but I said 9:30. That is wrong. It is 9:15. 9:15, 9:15, 9:15. Forget what I said before. 9:15 or 10:30. I really recommend 9:15. That's a great hour to be here. I hope you'll be here. But if you come at any time, I'll be here. I'm glad to see you. Also, just a note, COVID numbers and other sorts of nasty bugs are going up right now, and school's about to start. So we're not mask required right now, we're mask encouraged. But take that encouragement with some heart. It's a good time to start masking in public spaces this week. And finally, one last joyful announcement. I'm wearing pink today, not because of the Barbie movie, though that was written and directed by a Unitarian Universalist, and I want you to know that. But because it is our admin assistant and musical maven and RE admin's wedding day today, and pink is her favorite color. So congratulations to Sarah Jackson and her And so next time you see Sarah, she will be married. All right, we gather here as a community to pay attention. Most of us run from one thing or another, and you may be sitting in your seat, but I just want to make sure we're really grounded. And so I invite you to take a deep breath at whatever pace is yours. Let's light our chalice together with our unison words. If you're online, I invite you to light a chalice or a candle, and Massey will light our chalice here. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of this great gift. So we begin today with a story that some of you may be familiar with, and its origins are disputed. But it starts with an old woman, as all of the good stories do. This woman is very wise, and she is going to visit her sister, who lives in a village not too far away. She stops to rest, Because it's not so far, but she's learned in her many years that if you have the opportunity to stop and rest and take in a beautiful day, you probably should. And so she sits down on a rock and looks into the stream and finds that something is glistening. There is a huge gemstone in the shape of a heart poking out of the stream. So she lifts it out and places it into her backpack. She's learned in her old age that backpacks are a thing we think of for children, but quite frankly, they're much better for your body than a one-strap bag. And so she's decided that she's a backpack kind of person. And it's a good thing, because this stone is heavy, obviously worth quite a lot. And she continues on her way and runs into a young man. A young man who is hungry and tired and thirsty and down on his luck. And they get to talking. And this young man needs something. He needs help. And they're talking, and she remembers that she just picked up a giant stone that's got to be worth quite a bit of money. And so, after talking with him a while, she lifts this stone out of her backpack because she's been stretching, and so despite her age, she's quite limber, actually, in a way that I can't even imagine. And she lifts it out of her bag and over her head, just like people did last week with their cats for the animal blessing. And she puts it in front of the young man and says, "Here, this is for you." And he says, "Oh, that's got to be worth a lot." And she says, "Yeah, I agree. That's why I'm giving it to you." And he's overwhelmed, but he knows he needs it. And so he takes it and thanks her and goes on his way. And she goes on her way and goes to visit her sister. And then on her way back, here's the young man waiting for her, which is weird because the visit to her sister was about a week long. So he must have been sitting there thinking for some time. The young man jumps up as soon as he sees her and says, "I've been waiting for you. I mean, I went to town first, but I came back and I've been waiting. And, well, I want you to take this stone back." And if this were a different kind of story, it would be because this stone had a curse or something on it, but that's not the case at all. The old woman, she's confused. She says, "Well, I gave that to you. It must be worth a lot. Did you go to town and try to sell it to improve your life?" And he says, "Yeah, I went to town, and I mean, it's true, it's worth more than I could have ever possibly imagined. But I don't know why you gave it to me. And that's worth something too. I want to know what you have in you that let you share that with me. If you could give me that gift, this would be a story we would tell in church." I think this is why we come to church. And so I invite you to turn to your neighbor and look around, make sure you're not leaving anyone out. If you have to be a group of 3 to make sure that everyone's included, do that. And share what you think is a blessing. We sang earlier about calling down a blessing. What the heck is a blessing? Type in the chat or share with your neighbor.
Walking in this way, I don't know that I'm going to caffeine. Stopped and said, "Oh, I thought that there was animal blessing. I didn't bring my animal, but here's a big, you have a video of this north where it's increasingly derping on me." But she was like, "Will you bless my
go ahead and switch if you haven't yet shared. All right, we could talk for blessings for a long time, it seems. I invite you to take your seat. So the reason I ask you this is because we're sort of on a blessing run here at First Unitarian. Last week we had the animal blessing, and now we've got a blessing of bags, of backpacks for students and teachers, of work bags, of bags under your eyes from work, of the baggage you have from work. So it sounds like you all had a lot of ideas, and so what is a blessing? Now, for those who don't know me that well, I don't ask rhetorical questions a lot in church, so I'd love to hear from some of you. Call out if you have an idea of what a blessing is. Your daughter. Ooh, that's good, because she's here, and that's really good. Anyone else? That I woke up this morning and am standing upright. I think that blessing is also true if you woke up this morning and you are flat on your back watching us online. But yeah, absolutely. Anyone else? A gift of intention. Ooh, so like getting into like not naming a particular blessing, but like what is the meaning of the word blessing? A gift of intention. It is what I meant, but I love that people are naming blessings in their lives. I wasn't gonna discourage that. So, a gift of intention, yeah. So I think of a blessing as naming something that's already good, that you see, and that you're hoping we can grow more of together, right? A gift of intention is a really nice way to put that. What is a blessing? The poet John O'Donohue has some ideas. Hello! I couldn't hear you, I couldn't hear you in the back, but do you want to tell me what a blessing is? Sharing is a blessing? It sure is. Also, since I can't hear you in the back, can I recommend sitting right up front? Come, think about it. Think about it. You don't have to. John, you want to add? Your children. Children and parents and families of all kinds. Absolutely. Let's see what John O'Donohue has to say about a blessing.
A blessing for presence. May you awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. May you have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. May you receive great encouragement when new frontiers beckon. May you respond to the call of your gift and find the courage to follow its path. May the flame of anger free you from falsity. May warmth of heart keep your presence aflame and anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of soul. May you take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. May you be consoled in the secret symmetry of your soul. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder.
On the screen, you'll see lyrics to a little excerpt from Wildflowers by Tom Petty. And I'd invite you to join me in singing as you're able. I'm going to sing it first one time through. The choir's going to join me. If you know it, feel free to join that time. And then we'll kind of all do our best to sing through it a few times. Here's a little introduction. You belong among the wildflowers. You belong somewhere close to me, far away from your trouble and worry. You belong somewhere you feel free. You belong time. And you belong among the wildflowers. You belong somewhere close to me, far away from your trouble and worry. You belong somewhere you feel free with harmonies. You belong where your wildflowers. You belong somewhere you need, far away from the trouble and worry. You belong somewhere you feel free. Beautiful, thank you.
Hello, my name is Massey, and I just graduated from college last December. Thank you. And I've noticed that ever since then, I guess this is the first time, but September feels significantly weirder now that I'm not preparing to go back to school. Because for the past 17 years of my life, except for a brief moment in 2020, the end of August always meant going out with my parents to buy new clothes and supplies, looking up my teachers on ratemyteacher.com, and debating whether or not to replace the tattered backpack I've been using for the past 7 years. But this fall is different. Instead, I'm watching my brother and sister go through these rituals without me. Rituals that I didn't even realize were rituals. And through all of this, I've noticed that back to school is one of the rare times in our lives where we actually get the chance to prepare for a substantial change. At school, these changes come in all different forms, but they're usually all laid out in a handy syllabus or email checklist. You always know what classes you're taking, who your teachers are, and what you need to buy beforehand. But most importantly, it's at the same time every year. And someone who is just now venturing out into the world outside of school, we don't get the chance to prepare for life changes very often, do we? Most of the time, they just kind of happen, whether we like it or not. And this got me thinking back to when back to school wasn't a ritual, when it was new and scary and unpredictable. One of my earliest memories is actually of back to school. I was a rising first grader who had experienced school once before and wasn't super jazzed about doing it again. I hated that I was in a new classroom with a new teacher and completely new classmates. I had a best friend named Matthew in my kindergarten class, but since my new life was structured around school and he was no longer part of my school experience, I felt like I would never see him again, even though we lived down the street from each other. He was also the only person in my kindergarten class that I particularly liked. Everyone else had their own little warring cliques, and we just kind of had each other. We were a bit problematically codependent in retrospect, so I think it's for the best we didn't share a class again. But I remember being so terrified of having to be in school without him that I dreaded the first day of first grade with all my little heart. So when it finally came around and I found myself in this new classroom with a new teacher and new classmates, all of my fears seemed to be realized. It sucked. And then a boy I knew named Elijah walked into the classroom. He was another boy from my kindergarten class that, again, I didn't particularly like. He was in one of those rival cliques, and I always tended to steer clear of him. But when he walked in that door and I realized that my class wasn't going to be full of unfamiliar faces, I ran over to him and I gave him a big hug. And he must have been feeling the same way as me, because he ran over to me too and hugged me back. And that's how I got my second best friend of elementary school. And then after that, first and second grade were a breeze. I had gone through that transition and come out of it with a new best friend. And I think this experience holds true to a lot of transitions in our lives, even all the way up to adulthood. Even if you don't get the chance to prepare for a change, there will always be someone going through the same thing as you, and you can connect with them simply through the fact that you're going through it together.
So I'm about to invite our children to do something special here. And this invitation and the words come from the Reverend Jen Crow, so she gets all of the credit. So, kids, if you brought a backpack or the bag that you use for school, or if you're homeschooled, whatever it is that you use to hold your stuff, if you brought that, I'm gonna ask you to open the pocket of it just a little bit, just a tiny amount. And if you didn't bring a backpack, I'm gonna ask you to pretend like you're opening it, just a little bit. And then I'm gonna ask you to put on your actual backpack or your pretend backpack. And I offer this to the kids, but if you're a student in a way where you're going to school right now, you're invited to do this. And again, I want to remind you that this is from Jen Crow. So now I want to invite you to stand on your chair. Now, generally this isn't a thing that adults ask you to do. And I want you to listen to your adults when they ask you not to at other times. But right now it's important that you're able to look around this room, because you're up there and you can see differently than you do normally. If you're online, go to gallery view. And I want you to look around and I want you to see all of these faces, see all of the people who are looking at you right now. Because these are the people who have your back. We don't go with you to school. It would be embarrassing if we did. But we are rooting for you, we are cheering you on, and we are with you in the bus or the hallway or the lunchroom or in front of your computer screen, on the playground, in your classrooms. These people, this community, well, we're with you in your heart. We're loving you and rooting for you. And so you can remember us whenever you need us. And if you need a reminder, we're gonna invite you to come forward and get a heartstone. A heartstone that's much smaller than the one that the old wise woman gave, because Reverend AJ and Reverend Verdis are just not that strong. And so when you're ready, hop down from your chairs and come forward. And I'm gonna ask the rest of us to sing Call Down a Blessing. Just one time.
Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. One more time. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down.
Spirit of love and life, be with our children and our students. Fill their hearts with courage and strength and tenderness. Help them to tell their truth about who they are and all that they see and sense and know. Help us to listen in a way that lets them speak. May this stone be a reminder of the love and care of this community. And may you keep it until it is time to pass it on to someone else. So now we turn to our teachers and all who work in schools. Administrators and paraprofessionals and volunteers in our school partnership ministry at School 15 and 22, and volunteers right here in religious education. And so let me just say that if you've been thinking, gosh, I really want to volunteer in religious education this fall, and you haven't signed up yet, just come get your blessing and we'll take care of the logistics later. It's an awesome way to start. So as adults, your bones take longer to heal if you fall, so I'm not going to invite you up onto the chair. And also, you have a lot of stuff, and so I invite you to come forward for a heartstone or simply a spoken blessing. But know that the spirit of play and discovery and freedom runs to and through and from you. So teachers, all those who work or volunteer in schools, come forward and receive a blessing.
Called out a blessing, called out a blessing, called out a blessing, called out. Called out a blessing, called out a blessing, called out a blessing, called out. One more time. Called out a blessing, called out a blessing, called out a blessing, called out. Called out a blessing, called out a blessing, called out a blessing, called out. Last time. Called out a blessing, called out a blessing, called out a blessing, called out. Called out a blessing, called out a blessing, called out a blessing, called out.
Spirit of life and love, be with our teachers and school workers and volunteers. May they know that may you know that you are a blessing. Your work and your presence matters in the lives of our children and our youth. And your worth is not determined by your work, but boy, are we grateful for it. Your backpacks, literal and symbolic, can be so heavy at times. May this be a community where you can set it down for an hour or two and where you can be lifted up. May this stone be a reminder of the love and care of this community, and may you keep it until it is time for you to pass it on to someone else. So I invite us all now to rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing hymn 109 in Singing the Living Tradition as we come marching, marching.
Today we'll be singing verses 1 and 2.
Reminds me of a labor movement, early 1900s labor movement song. Maybe we can do some research and find out. But my parents were of the generation that valued getting an education, getting a job, and retiring from that one job after 30 plus years of service. Well, that's nice. But that's not the norm anymore. So far in this 45 years of life, I've held over 10 positions, from mail sorter in the Boston University mailroom of Claflin Hall, to salesperson in the lawn and garden department at Sears in the old Irondequoit Mall. Does anybody remember that Sears? To claims authorizer for the Social Security Administration, the Office of Disability Operations in Maryland, in which I cried on the way to work almost every day. To becoming an assistant professor of history and African American studies at Monroe Community College's Damon City campus in the old Sibley building. And now, there's been stops in between of all of that, by the way. But now as a minister for growth for this congregation, and I'm also an acting president of an organization that promotes public deliberations, transitions can be numerous, joyous, annoying, welcomed, very much needed. They can be messy, they can be complicated, and they can be hard. All the way from how do I not have to do this again feelings, to what's my next move, to I can finally breathe now, to how long can I hold this job? Will I get along with my new coworkers? Will I get along with my new boss? Will I be a good boss? Will I find another job, and soon? And let's not forget about imposter syndrome. Who knows anything about imposter syndrome? Feeling that you are a fraud or a phony and doubting your abilities that got you that job in the first place. I've been here for over a month now, and let me tell you, imposter syndrome is real and can be a part of work transitions. I am so thankful that my transition, though it has not been smooth, if anybody knows what's been happening to me for the past 2 weeks, has not been smooth, but it has been well supported, very, very welcoming, and good. Good transitions require us to become dreamers. Dreamers dreaming of what is possible, what we need in our lives to enrich it, to fulfill it, and to sustain it. But one quote that I keep dear to my heart is from Harriet Tubman, who had a bunch of jobs in her lifetime. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world.
Thanks to Reverend Verdis's most recent work transition, I'm no longer the newest minister on the block. But I do have my own kind of transition coming up this year. As many of you know, my wife and I will be welcoming our first child in January. And so this Labor Day weekend, I find myself reflecting with gratitude for that labor movement and for generous employment practices within Unitarian Universalism, because when the baby arrives in January, I'll be able to take 3 months away from work as parental leave, plus a few weeks of strategically used vacation time, so expect me back sometime in May. And I'm well aware that it's not many people in our country who experience similar benefits. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, only about 1 in 4 employees in the private sector have access to any kind of paid family leave. Did you know that there's no federal law providing a right to such paid leave? Laws do exist in some states, including here in New York, but in general, American employee benefits and the regulatory laws that inform them are drastically less than those of many other countries in the world. At least 20 other countries on Earth guarantee a minimum of 6 months parental leave. New York law guarantees only 8 weeks. So I am grateful for the relative generosity of parental leave in Unitarian Universalist ministry, while also woefully aware of the limited to non-existent parental leave most American workers receive. And I admit it's sometimes easy to be jaded about it. Of course America lags in this area. Our corporate overlords tend to exploit workers in any way that they can get away with. We live and work and even play within a nearly intractable system of capitalism, which by its very definition prioritizes cold, hard profits over anything else, like, say, the well-being of individual humans, let alone humanity, or the delicate balance of ecosystems, both local and planetary. However, I do say nearly intractable, because the great counterbalance to the exploitation of the owning class in capitalism is the democratic and organized effort of the working class, the labor movement, which is renewing its strength in the current historical moment of pandemic-accelerated generational shifts in economics and labor markets. And we don't need to look very far to see it unfolding. Take the local case of Rochester General Hospital. The nurses there formed a union last year and began negotiating with the executives and administration there for better wages, for better staffing levels so that nurse-to-patient ratios might return to the safe and recommended 1:5 rather than 1:8 or even more, and equipment upgrades. Now, the hospital hasn't made any meaningful movement towards addressing these grievances, so a month ago, the nurses' union held a strike on August 3rd and 4th, and the bargaining talks continue now. But we know it's not just Rochester. Nurses across the country are organizing in the wake of pandemic-related overloads of hospital systems, while hospitals themselves speak of the nursing shortage. I heard this on NPR from the former Commissioner of Labor Statistics, Erica Grosjean. Quote, "I don't know of a time in my professional life when there hasn't been a quote-unquote shortage of nurses." She continued, "In the long run, in the macroeconomic sense, it's not what economists would call a labor shortage. It's a period of time during which wages need to rise." And it's not just nursing either. American employers seeking labor generally, skilled or otherwise, also invoke the concept of a labor shortage. Nobody wants to work anymore, right? Why is it never, no executives want to pay a living wage anymore? Whether it takes the form of corporate profits or exorbitant executive salaries, across sectors right now, those at the top are raking in record profits, while those that actually labor to produce those profits are barely receiving enough to live on themselves. Lastly, on a personal note, as a grandson and nephew of SAG-AFTRA members, I would be remiss not to mention the writers and actors strike going on in Hollywood right now, as mega corporations like Disney, Amazon, and Warner Brothers refuse to offer fair royalties and compensation for shows produced in the new technology of streaming platforms, right? Our regulations and practices always lag behind new technologies. And as those strikes drag on, these executives have taken on a siege mentality, hoping to starve out and outlast the striking creatives, without whose labor none of the movies and TV shows that are a mainstay of American culture could exist in the first place. And so with all this tension and negotiating and striking and exploitation in so many sectors of our economy, I have to ask myself, where do my UU values lead me? How can I relate to my own labor with dignity and honor? And how can I see accurately and do justice to the efforts of those whose labor I rely on for everything from life-saving medical care to whatever will entertain me on TV as I wind down my day? And as I prepare for parental leave to herald a new precious life into this bruised and breaking world, it's less values and talking points, but songs and sayings that live in my heart. It's the refrain of bread and roses, because the goal is not just survival, but for humans to thrive with art, beauty, and laughter in their days. May this and each Labor Day remind us all of the deep fullness of our worth as beings, worth that is inherent and inalienable, even as the power of greed seeks to exploit every last drop. May it be so.
And so, for all who toil, who are starting a new job, or returning again to seemingly endless Mondays, I invite you to come forward to take a heartstone or merely ask for a blessing. And if you've come forward already, you don't have to, but you're welcome to come for another blessing. I find in my experience that we could always use more blessings. So, for all those who toil, in the home or through remote work or commuting, come forward. And if it's none of you, we've got lots of volunteer gigs at church.
Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down.
Spirit of life and love, be with all who work. Fill their hearts with courage and strength and tenderness. May you know that your working hours are not all who you are. May you know that your work is not your worth, and yet each moment, every working hour is an invitation to live faithfully. May this stone be a reminder of the love and care of this community. May it help you, and may you keep it until it is time to pass it to someone else.
And now we come to the part of our service in which we all can be a part of. And as I continue scrolling, okay. Everything our church does for ourselves and others is made possible by what we bring to it. And each week we practice shared generosity to support the work and witness of Unitarian Universalism in Rochester, and half of our Sunday offering goes to a partner organization working to create a more just and loving world. Today we share our plate with the Urban League of Rochester, whose mission is to enable African Americans, Latinx, the poor, and other disadvantaged to secure economic self-reliance, parity, and power, and civil rights. And in just a few weeks, we are partnering with the Urban League of Rochester to sponsor an interfaith reception at the Interrupt Racism Summit. And in the spirit of abundance and generosity, our offering will now be given and received with gratitude.
We are grateful to the choir for sharing "And When I Rise."
And when I rise, let me rise like a bird, joyfully. And when I fall, let me fall like a leaf, gracefully, without regret. And when I rise, let me rise like the bird, joyfully. And when I fall, let me fall like a leaf, gracefully, without regret. And when I rise, let me rise like a bird, joyfully. And when I fall, let me fall like a leaf, gracefully, without regret. And when I rise, let me rise like a bird, joyfully. And when I fall, let me fall like a leaf, gracefully, without regret.
Ooh, I want to speak to retirement, but of course, by definition, if I am working here as a minister or any of us are, we're not retired. And so I needed a little bit of help. And so I called Jean Ann Thomas, a member of this congregation who retired a couple of months ago, who's not here in the choir, though she often sings in the choir because she's traveling. And I called our minister emeritus, the Reverend Dick Gilbert, who is sitting on the banks of Seneca Lake right now, because you can do that when you're retired on a Sunday morning. So they helped me with these remarks, but I'm also going to need some help from our children. Reverend AJ and Reverend Verdis, they've been doing a lot of blessings, and in a little bit we're going to bless our retirees. But if our young people could help them, because these heartstones are heavy, if you could come forward to the rug as slowly as possible, and just wait for them when you get there. They will need your help in offering heartstones to those who are retired. So go ahead and do that while I share with you the words of Jean Ann Thomas and the Reverend Dick Gilbert. Dick starts with sending greetings from the banks of the lake, which again is where he is now on a Sunday morning. In retirement, he has learned that, well, there are 3 stages. First, there's go-go, and then there's slow-go, and then there's no-go. So go-go is when you've retired, maybe you've worked somewhere for 32 years, but you still have energy for travel, for projects, and all the rest. Dick, he's done some preaching in his retirement, and now this go-go, it still requires work, but now he does it in pajamas, mostly on Zoom. Jean Ann writes that she expected to have all the time in the world to do things that she's been putting off for decades. For example, could spend an hour in the middle of the day reading a novel. Or I could go on long hikes every single week. I could catch up around the house or go out with friends. And I could travel. The travel is happening. She's gone on 2 long trips in 2 months, including a month in the Northwest, which includes Alaska. It's a really big span, Jean Ann, but I guess you can do that in retirement. But the sitting around and the reading and the hiking, well, that's not really happening. She goes to lunch with friends, and she and Adam, well, they went out for a beer in the middle of the afternoon one time. But the days go by really, really quickly. Grocery shopping and appointments and mowing the lawn. The thing about retirement is, well, you could do it when it's convenient, but you don't have to fit them around the work week. So she's enjoying the pace, and having met with the financial manager twice, she feels comfortable in this. But the days go by so fast. She doesn't have all the time in the world like she expected. She feels a little guilty not working, but she doesn't miss work, just the people there. They were a constant in her life for many years. But so too are the people here. Though new faces come and go, the church community is still here. Dick, well, he, in his go-go phase, also mowed a lot of lawns. He also, just I think to show off to me, told me about how he alternated days walking to the Rochester Science Center and meditating there, and then lifting weights. But he's found that unlike the school prep of syllabi and shopping lists, changes don't announce themselves in advance. And so his slow-go period has started before he was really ready for it. He's been dealing with arterial fibrillation and treating it, but finding that his exercise regimen, well, he's not quite ready to return to it, though he hopes that he will be able to. Ministry, he realizes, was an awful lot of doing, and every Sunday was a deadline, but there were lots of other deadlines. And so gradually, in retirement, he's moving towards more being. He leans on the Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh to be his mentor. And he also dives into Erik Erikson's stages of life. Erikson writes about that final stage of retirement being one where you really get to do either ego integrity and integration or despair. Dick does not recommend despair. He's lucky that he feels pretty good about what he's done, about the things he finished here and accomplished, so it's good to look back. But he also finds that he has time in retirement to work through the things that maybe didn't go the way he thought, and to let them go. To set down not only the bag of work, but also the baggage. In this process of retirement that Dick wants you to know that Somerset Vaughn calls summing up, he's starting to work on a memoir. He's engaging in a project that's very humbling, he's discovered. He's taking all of his sermons, all of his books, all of his talks, everything he's ever written in a 4-decade career and 87 years of life, and he wants to pass them on to his children and grandchildren. They fit on a thumb drive. He's making many of these, and to think of his life's work as fitting on a thumb drive is a humbling experience indeed. I wanted to interrupt him then and tell him, but Dick, the impact, the ripples you've had in people's lives, people here in this very room. But he didn't want to talk about that. He wanted to talk about his great-grandchildren. He didn't think he was old enough to have them, but he has children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren by marriage, and it seems incredible. And he perhaps will gain 5 more grandchildren after a wedding next summer. He tries to balance this being and doing, but having done so much doing in his life, it is hard to set it down. His period of slow go involves continuing to work on his book about First Unitarian member Susan B. Anthony called Consorting with Angels. And he hopes to finish in the next year or 2. He's got lots of projects. He takes inspiration from Maggie Kuhn of the Grey Panthers, who said that to rest is to rust. And he's resting some, but moving enough to not rust. He describes this as a brief and unspectacular summary of retirement. That's his bar, not mine. To rest, to send greetings from the banks of Lake Seneca, and to offer his love to this community where he was able to work, but also from now rests. Dick Gilbert reports that he is 86, soon to be 87, and except for his ticker, he doesn't feel that old. Overall, retirement is an enjoyable stage of life. He recommends choosing not despair, and he recommends it to all of us. It is better than the alternative. Amen, Dick. Amen. So, for those who are newly retired, perhaps you, like Jean Ann, are at a brewery or a cruise in Alaska, but perhaps there's someone here. If you are retired, newly or not, I invite you to wave, to turn to this room, and to let others know that you are here, if you are retired. These are your classmates. These are your classmates in this chapter of learning, and there is no teacher but life itself right now. But you are all students. May the support of your peers, the questions of the heart, and the gifts of retirement unfold. And if you'd like a heartstone or simply a blessing, I invite Reverend Verdis and Reverend AJ to come forward, and with the help of our children, may all those who are retired come forward. Take the blessings where they come. Come and be blessed. Spirit of life and love, be with all those who have retired from formal work. Fill their hearts with courage and strength and tenderness. Help them to be well To be as well as to do. To rest. To know that rust is growth also. And may there be unceasing growth in this chapter. May this stone be a reminder of the community that loves and cares for you, and may you keep it. May you hold it, and may you feel the love in this heartstone until it is time to pass it on to someone else. With thanks to all who receive blessings and all those who offer blessings. A final prayer, again with the words of Reverend Jen Crow. Spirit of life, source of love that is with us all, be with all of us. Help us to reach out, to use our minds and our bodies and our words, trusting our wise and growing hearts. May we truly make our classrooms, our workplaces, our homes, our churches, and the world safe and nurturing places for all. Be with all of us whose hearts break for backpacks not taken up again, for changes unwanted and still flowing through, for those who must set it down before we were ready. Spirit of life and love, fill us with courage. Help us to know that wherever we go in love. Amen, and may it be so.
Please join in our closing hymn, We Give Thanks. Please rise in body and spirit.
Please remain standing as we extinguish our chalice together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, go thankful for the gifts of each and every day, each year starting anew. Go carrying this heartstone or the love in your heart, feeling held and nourished. And when you are ready, pass it on to someone else. Amen, and go in peace.